my name is Dr. Cliffe Schreuders. I'm a reader in cybersecurity at Leeds Beckett University, director of a research centre and founder of Hacktivity Cybersecurity Labs. And I'm going to talk to you about hacking games. So essentially what I want to talk to you about is the first half of the talk is going to be about surveying games that exist. And I'm going to summarize around about 20 different games, some of which are card games to computer games to CTFs. And then I'm going to introduce a new kind of cybersecurity game. But the central question is thinking about how much of the hacking is actually real or realistic in hacking games. So when thinking about how to sort of pick this apart, I just wanted to think about games in terms of two dimensions. So there's the technical realism of a game. So how much of it is it actually real life hacking? And the other dimension is the diegetic, narrative level in that game. So outside of the hacking that's happening and how realistic that is, how much do we see the impact on real systems and the impact on the environment outside of that? So the first kind of game that I'm going to discuss is what I'll call cyber aesthetics. So essentially, these are games that are they're not using any real cybersecurity in the game, and in fact, they are essentially like a magic system. So in the game, you walk up to a computer, you click a button, and you've hacked the computer. And we're using the cybersecurity as kind of just a layer of fun. And maybe it's to make it look cool, and we have hackers and stuff like that. So a really good example of a really good game, actually, is Cyberpunk, where the hacking it's not real. It is essentially the equivalent of a magic caster. So if you play a role-playing game, and you have a mage in that game, a netrunner is the equivalent, where essentially you're good at hacking, which just means you're good at doing magic. And quick hacks in Cyberpunk is basically an attack where you basically are hacking into the cybernetics of some other character, for example, and you've got a menu and you spend RAM to cast the spell or to do the hack. And essentially it's just a fun part of the game, and you do things you could make someone's grenades that they're carrying explode or something like that. And then there's a mini game inside the same game called Breach Protocol. And if you're trying to hack into a terminal, for example, then it comes up. And if you squint and don't pay much attention and look at that, you might go, oh, it looks like you're doing some kind of malware, reverse engineering, and some binary code, some hex on the screen. But it just looks like that. It's actually just this kind of sequencing sort of mini game. But it's fun, and it's a part of the game mechanics. Actually, if you peel back that and you just called it magic, you would, the game would still be good, and it would just, So it's just the aesthetic of hacking. The next kind of game that I'm going to discuss are these tabletop kind of concept games, and they are actually they're built on some game mechanics that are, these can be fun to play, and actually Control, Alt, Hack and Doxed are both games that were designed by academics, and essentially they've just taken a game and basically covered it in the flavor text of cybersecurity. So essentially, so Control, Alt, Hack is a reskin of Ninja Burger. Doxed is a reskin of Forbidden Island. They can both be fun games to play. They might involve, if you read all the text on the cards, you might learn something. But you could play the game and not learn anything, because actually it's just a layer on top of the gameplay. And there was a study by Hallett and Shreve just a few years ago where they took a bunch of cybersecurity games, including one of the ones on the slide, as the Doxed, and they mapped what cybersecurity concepts were in the game against CyBOK, the cybersecurity body of knowledge. And then they got people to play the games, and they actually recorded what people discussed and what was actually happened during gameplay. And yeah, it didn't really involve much cybersecurity for some of these games. So the finding was essentially, yeah, if you look at it, the cybersecurity content might be in the game, but it doesn't necessarily surface during gameplay. And certainly, I've used some of these games in the past as like icebreaking, for icebreaking sessions, and came to the same conclusion. They're fun to play, but you're not necessarily going to learn something from playing them. But there are games where you do learn from playing them, and there's this whole field in pedagogy around games-based learning, and games can be an effective way of learning things if they're designed well, and it fits into the constructivism, which is like basically the idea that you learn from building on what you already know, and by putting it into practice by doing things. So it's like learning through doing. So it all makes perfect sense. And games-based learning, if it's done right, can work well because you enter this flow state. And if it has to have all the things need to be right. It needs to have the right challenge level. It needs to also give you a space where you can fail and not feel bad about it. And so games-based learning can be positive. So the next category of game I'm going to talk about, actually, a bunch of these games are in the bookshelf, I just noticed. So this is a category of game that I'm calling security reflection. And so actually, this Backdoors and Breaches, got handed a copy as I came in today, and the OWASP cornucopia you can find in the bookshop, apparently. But essentially, these games, they do involve some real cybersecurity concepts. And if you put the effort in while you're playing them, it can be, they give you what you need in order to reflect on cybersecurity concepts. And so, for example, Elevation of Privilege and OWASP Cornucopia are threat modeling games where you are, by playing them, doing essentially real threat modeling on real systems while you're playing. And then, you have to kind of articulate that while you're playing the game. So this is Cornucopia. The screenshot there, which again, I can notice is in the other room. Essentially, you're doing threat modeling. So Elevation of Privilege is stride threat modeling. So if you guys know what that is, it's like, basically thinking through all the different threats, in a systematic way for, analyzing the security of a system. And OWASP Cornucopia is kind of the same kind of thing, but looking at it from an OWASP top 10 perspective, looking at kind of web app security vulnerabilities. And these games are kind of like competitive card games, like Whist kind of thing, where you've got suits and you're playing cards. But in order to like play the game, you actually have to think through the security threats of a particular system, and you can basically create a log as you're playing that you would go back to. And so they're real. This is real cybersecurity work that's happening while you're playing the game. But it's in the abstract still. It's a conceptual level. You're not actually doing any real technical work. Next category would be games where the hacking is like abstracted, and it's kind of like a graphical type thing. So a bit like the aesthetic game where you're kind of pressing a button to do the hacking, except that it's closer to real life in that the concepts that are represented in the game are a bit more real. So it's like a UI type abstraction, and it is kind of like this Hollywood hacking sort of aesthetic, and it's kind of like movie level accuracy terminology, but you could learn something from playing it potentially. So Uplink is an example. There's kind of point and click hacking, and if you look at it, it looks a bit like hacking from a 90s movie. And a more recent game would be Midnight Protocol, and it's a video game, but it's sort of like a tabletop type game. It's got deck building in it, and it's a turn-based game. But the actual way you're playing is by doing like intrusion, like escalation and kind of pivoting taps and things like that. So there's like an element of real concepts in the game. Next category of game, and now we're starting to go further on the spectrum of technical realism, are games where there's simulated terminals inside the game. And so if you looked over someone's shoulder playing one of these games, you might think they're sat at a Linux terminal doing some real CTF, for example. But if you spent an extra 10 seconds reading what was on the screen, you'd realize it's not. So it can be authentic looking. They might even have the real names of commands. They'll be like you run nmap, for example. But the actual command will be like a simplified version, or just actually maybe nothing like the real command at all. But you'll run the thing and it might tell you there's like an open port, for example, and then there'll be another set command you could run after that to do the next step. But it's all kind of on Rails. There's like very limited, basically it depends how much work the game developer's done and how much they've built out into it. But there's no actual real thing happening. It's not really scanning a network. It's just giving you the illusion that it's something similar happening. But the thing that you do have in it is that there will be some gameplay mechanics added on top. So you'll be given missions, and maybe some narrative as to why you're doing it. So there's a bit more story than you might get in CTF, for example. So Greyhack is an example, and it looks a bit like a Unix terminal with commands that are a bit like Unix commands. And if you look at a screenshot of it, it looks basically it's like using a desktop is when you're playing the game. So the last category second last category that I'm going to discuss is simulated environments. And this is where we have like the real world, and when we're seeing attacks happening, we're seeing the consequences borne out in an environment. And so you kind of, the security concepts are emerging from like how the world's reacting to it. And an oldie but a goodie example of that is Cyber Siege, which was actually created by the US Postgraduate Naval School. And it's like The Sims for cybersecurity. So you have all your office workers and you can put them in an office and set up access controls. And there's like an abstract view of network firewall rules you can set and things like that. It's mostly on the defensive side, but you see like the consequences of attacks that are happening based on like what the cost is for an organization, for example. Else, Heartbreak is a game that maybe is the odd one out here because it's not really about hacking, but you are effectively, by playing the game, you write code. So it's like a Python-like scripting language, where you're actually writing and changing the behavior of environments and NPCs in the system. So it is kind of like you're hacking the environment and the NPCs, but it's kind of a bit weird and different, but I thought worthy of a mention. Another one, which is bridging the gap between the terminal simulation and the environment simulation, is a game called Anonymous Hacker Simulator. And you've got a laptop you can walk up to, and it's like a simulated terminal. The realism breaks down because you have to purchase Nmap, and the tools are like simplified simulations. But, you can look out the window and look around your messy bedroom in the game. And so it's kind of combining those two kinds of games. The last category of game that I want to discuss, which I don't know if it's a game, is like CTFs. So capture the flag challenges. I mean, put your hand up if you'd categorize it as a game or not. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, we can agree it's a game then. So the advantage of a CTF is you're using real tools. There's real techniques. There's real skills that you're building. It can be fun. Like hacking computers is fun. You can have real challenges that have technical depth to them. We really believe in CTF. So at Leeds Beckett, like in our degree program, all of our cybersecurity modules have CTFs basically every week that all contribute to the marks across all the modules. So like we build CTFs all the time and really believe in the power of them. So there are a bunch of different like platforms that do, CTFs. Obviously, and we publish Hacktivity, which is our one, which you can subscribe to and access all that content if you'd like to check it out. there's another concept related to games-based learning, which is gamification, which often gets mixed up, the terminology. Two terms kind of get interchanged sometimes. But the difference is games-based learning is learning by playing a game. Gamification is where you're basically bolting on game-like things to something that's not really a game. And usually what that means are things like points and leaderboards and badges. And CTFs use gamification a lot. Maybe it is a game, so, but either way, we're kind of taking these elements of games and attaching to CTFs. But what you will find with most CTFs is there's not a lot of world around them. There's not a lot of narrative. Sometimes it's got a theme, and so a CTF might be themed to be like a bank that you're breaking into, for example, or financial, whatever it is, and there'll be a thin layer of theme on top of it. But when you actually dig into what's actually on the box, you're there for the flags and for the technical challenge. There's not usually, with only a few exceptions, there's not usually a lot of narrative around it. So that brings me to the second half of my talk, which is talking about what we've built and taking that as inspiration. So what we're aiming for is that top right-hand corner where we have the technical realism of CTFs, but building in something that has narrative depth, while trying to build something that is fun to play. So we've created a game engine called Break Escape. It's an open source game engine for building escape rooms that has like real hacking and real technical challenges built into the game. Has like a retro top-down vibe to it. And yeah, it's basically inspired by escape rooms and the kinds of puzzles that you have in escape rooms, combined with real live virtual machines and technical challenges inside the game. It is a reactive world where you have NPCs that you can have branching conversations with, and there are consequences for the decisions that are made. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. So the kinds of things that we can include in our puzzle design when we're designing like levels or missions is we have like cyber physical things like navigating office rooms, picking locks. So if you've been into the lockpick room, it's like using those kind of real mechanics to pick the locks. And we have things like cloning RFID cards, dusting for fingerprints, with digital things like real live VMs that have all of the things that we can do in a real VM. With some real security vulnerabilities and attacks and things like that. And we have NPCs that you can social engineer or just make branching like decisions and impact. So on that game engine, we've built a number of things. And one of them is a game that is called Safety Net Holding Back the Entropy. So it's a new game that we've been building, and it's got like a spy versus spy kind of narrative arc to it. And in the story, essentially, you've just joined Safety Net. Your mission is to counter Entropy, which is this criminal organization that's pursuing world domination through cyber-physical, like attacks, data manipulation, corporate espionage, infrastructure sabotage, and experimental programs. And you're kind of going undercover on each of the missions. So the way that we design it is so that the story, basically, in order to complete the mission entirely, you have to do the technical challenges and all the stuff around that, all the narrative. You've got a lot of agency to make maybe morally dubious decisions and things like that. There's lots of different narrative paths you can take through the story, but you have to do the technical part to solve the thing. So I've recorded a little bit of video.
Agent, thanks for getting here on short notice. We have a situation at Viral Dynamics Media. Entropy's social fabric cell is operating there. Infiltrate Viral Dynamics and identify what Entropy is planning. Gather evidence of their operations and identify all operatives and report back with actionable intelligence so we can stop whatever they're building. You're going in as an IT contractor hired to audit their network security. Completely legitimate. Viral Dynamics actually requested the audit weeks ago. We just made sure we got the contract. Get inside.
So I'm going to, in this demo,
and report back.
I'm going to speed, the demo speed runs a little bit. So I'm going to just give you a bit of a flavor of the sorts of things in the game. just to have like a little look.
Hi, you must be the IT contractor. I'm Sarah, the receptionist. Let me get you checked in for the security audit. Sure thing. Here's your visitor badge and a key for the main office area.
Hi Sarah, it's Kevin from IT. Just leaving this message to confirm the door code update I mentioned in the meeting. The IT room...
So in this example, there's like lots of different sort of things you can interact with in the environment. So there's like the phone you can interact with. There's a clue there that we'll use in a minute with a PIN code. We use the key and we can see the mechanics of like inside the lock, how the different pins in the lock work, which will be helpful in a minute when we're doing our lock picking. There are like locked doors that we can't get through without a lockpick set, which we'll return to in a moment. In this little example, I'm actually going to just go and interact with some of the parts of the game. And then hopefully, if you're interested, you can actually go and play this for free today if you want to. So I'm not going to give any spoilers as to the actual solutions to the challenges. And this IT guy looks a bit like me with an Australian accent, but that's entirely coincidence.
I've got a key card for the server room. It's on, and for physical security testing, I've got something special. Okay, so for the audit, I can give you a lockpick set. And also, here's my server room key card. I've set up a Kali Linux workstation in there for you. Use it for the... Here you go. The lockpicks work on most of the older locks around.
So yeah, we've got the RFID cards, which gets us into the server room. And in the server room, there's a Kali Linux system. So in the game, when you walk up to a PC, it's a real live system. So this Kali Linux VM is on a network with the other systems that you can attack. We don't actually have enough information yet to do that because you need to explore the office to find passwords and usernames and IP addresses. But, you know, you can walk up to a machine. It's a Kali Linux system. So we've got a lockpick set as well. So we can go back to this door and use our lockpick set to get past that. So if you've done lockpicking, show of hands if you've done lockpicking before. So this will look familiar, right? If you've seen a cutaway lock, this like follows actually how lockpicking works. So when you pick the lock and you get into this room, we need to know this guy's anniversary to know the password to log into this system. So we don't have enough information about that yet. There's some other PIN codes we don't know. And we also can come across things like encrypted messages or encoded messages. And in this scenario, you could go back to the Kali system and use the command line tools if you wanted to. But there's also, in this scenario, there's a CyberChef system, so I'll just quickly show you that as well. So with CyberChef, it was just an easy way to do some of the encoding and encryption challenges and things like that. So that's there. And without giving you the solution, you can see how you use CyberChef. You could try different encoding and decoding methods to figure that out. So again, hopefully maybe you'll go and try it yourself. So no spoilers here, but also if we go into the connected room along here, we'll find our antagonist in the story, Derek.
You must be the IT contractor. Security audit, right?
Menacing.
Maybe check back later.
Voice. So if you go through the narrative and you actually collect all the information, you can go back and he'll monologue and tell you his plans and all the rest of it. But legitimately, you can just go up and beat him up if you want. But you still have to complete all the VM challenges and everything like that to get to actually thwart his plan. And again, I'm not going to spoil anything by telling you how to complete it or anything. So we're just going to let him kill us. Yeah, do you like that? So, if you got the reference. Right. So, the way we built it, 5 minutes left. That's perfect. The way we built it is, although I could talk about this for another half an hour, but it's a Ruby on Rails stack. It's essentially built as a Rails engine, which we mount into Activity itself. But the game itself is open source, so you can run it on your own machine if you want to. We use SecGen to generate all the VMs, and we use Ink to create the branching dialogues for NPCs. And it does impact on the story significantly based on the decisions that you make. We host it all on Hacktivity. And the server side does things like validating CTF flags and tracking what inventory and things you have like that. So we also build these graphs of the scenario to help us reason through things. So this is the rooms in that scenario that we just saw, and you can see the content in the rooms, and then we can actually look at how these things are linked together to make sure that the scenario is solvable and all that sort of thing. I won't scroll down because again that would be spoilers, but you can see the various story beats that happen, and it unlocks and gives you hints and tips as you go. Actually, your agent will provide you with lab sheets if you want them, of reference field guides and things. So it's open source. It's free to play. If you sign up to Hacktivity, you can play the first mission now. We've literally just this weekend is released now, so you can go and play it and tell me what you think. So if you just go to hacktivity.co.uk, you can sign up and play the game. The code is on GitHub, and there's lots of stuff that we build. So to answer the original question, we were asking how much of the hacking in games is real. The answer is most games, it's not. It's an aesthetic, or it's decorative, or it's simulated at best, with the exception of CTFs. But what we've done is build a game that has that technical element in it, while also providing narrative experience and a world that reacts to what you're doing. So the aim is technical realism of a CTF, puzzles of an escape room, narrative stakes of a story game. So thank you. Thanks for listening to the talk. I'm on LinkedIn if you want to find me, and you can play the game on Hacktivity. Thank you.
Do you have a couple of minutes if anyone does have any questions?
What benefits will this provide as opposed to just purely using creativity?
So it's fun. So yeah, the technical challenges in that first mission actually is the same thing that we do with our students the very first week in the first ethical hacking module. So again, without giving too much away, there's a brute force element to what you're doing and that sort of thing. So it is, it's just, but it's a game. So, we already CTFify, things, and I guess the advantage is that it's engaging and fun to play. Yeah.
You start looking at the effects of the narrative on memory retention or skill retention?
I mean, it's an excellent question, and considering I've just finished building it, we've not.
No.
but that's the kind of thing that we need to do is look at it from a research perspective of what the actual impact is. At a minimum, hopefully it's an engaging, fun thing that attracts more people and a different audience, but also people like ourselves that enjoy cybersecurity anyway. That first mission, the difficulty level it's beginner friendly. There's a lot. If you ask for the hints, the NPCs will give you more hints as well. But if you don't ask for hints and you just want a bit more of a challenge, and it's fun to play. Yeah. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you once again.
We've got one more question. Time for one more? One more question?
Oh, yeah, that's fine, thank you. So the VMs that are made, in the game, are they, actually local on the system, or are they rendered, elsewhere?
So the game... Sorry, there's I'll try and give a really brief answer to what could be really long. We publish a open source project that we create called SecGen, which is a framework for generating virtual machines with hacking challenges and CTFs, and we can actually randomize them so that the details change each time. And in this case, when we host it via Hacktivity, they're running in the cloud. So they're running in our Proxmox infrastructure. If you wanted to run the game locally, there's a lot more work that you'd need to do. But you don't need to. You can just sign up to Activity and play the game. Great.
Perfect.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.